Hey, welcome one and all to another episode of A Scotsman Talks To. I'm your host, Calum Lykan, and thank you very much for joining on this. Well, it depends where you are. In Calgary, it's a glorious Thursday evening, so thank you for joining. Tonight's guest, well, oh, geez, I've let the cat out the bag. It should have been guests, but life happens. Our wonderful podcasting couple are now just a solo podcaster this evening. They are obviously, still there, but life took over. So tonight we have, instead of Avery and Lena, we just have Avery Cochrane, who is a host of the Messhall podcast, which is part of a podcast network which I was a part of it. Yeah, I was. Yeah. When I did a podcast, another podcast in a galaxy far, far away, the Alberta Podcast Network. Now, Avery is a lovely guy, the Messhall podcast. I will let him explain it all. I've been a guest on that. And when he said he would come on to my show, I was very excited because, you know what? I love just returning the favour. And also I like the variety. A different guest, a different theme, a different atmosphere. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Avery Cochrane from the Messhall podcast on to A Scotsman Talks To. Hi, Avery. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent, Avery. Excellent. And as I mentioned, we are. I get stumbly when I say that. We are associated through the Alberta Podcast Network, although technically I don't have a podcast on it. But you are one of the hosts of the Messhall podcast. Yeah. And the best way to start this show, because people might know the Messhall, but they might not know you. So please introduce yourself to the world. Tell us just a smidgen about yourself.
Well, my name's Avery, like you already said. And I don't know really what to say about myself. I could go all the way back, but it's always interesting with food podcasts. People always ask, why do you like food so much? And so I obviously enjoy food. We enjoy doing the podcast, but my wife and I met in cooking school years ago, and that started our relationship. Like I said, we met there. We eventually started dating and got married. And then I started doing a podcast a little bit 2.5 years ago, maybe a little bit less than that. And then I was just interviewing some great comedians. It started out where I was interviewing comedians about food. I thought it was an interesting topic because I like food, I like podcasts, and I love stand-up comedy. It's one of the things. I love going to a live show. I love getting a good belly laugh, and that's one of my favorite things. I love laughing. And then after about 80 episodes, it was a weekly thing, I felt I was telling the same story over and over again. And then my wife, who was a guest a couple times, she came on, and we started transforming it into more of a food review show. So it's nothing that we take too seriously, but we like to have fun with it. We don't get into anything, like I said, too serious. Like, we don't try wines, so we're not finding those notes of leather and tobacco and earthiness. But what we will try,
mouthfeel.
Yeah, we will try gummy bears, and we will say if it tastes really good, and whether it has that like a really good strawberry flavor or really bad fake strawberry flavor. That's the kind of stuff that we like doing. So we've done, a ton of episodes now. We're on episode 138, I think, came out last week or yesterday. So
excellent.
Like I said, nothing ever too seriously, but it was a lot of fun. We have fun doing it, and yeah, it's pretty
fantastic. And of course, we met through the podcasting, the Alberta Podcast Network. And I am just going to let the world know, if you join the network and you go to one of the meetups and it's like bring a potluck, Avery usually brings something that's just amazing. It's like, it's just always so good. I would bring chips and dip because it's me and I'm crap, but Avery would bring like this beautiful prepared dish, and yeah, we all ate. We all ate well.
That's what I like doing, though. I don't often get a chance to show off my cooking skills much anymore. I don't cook professionally. I am still involved with the hospitality industry, but I impress my wife sometimes when I cook, but to impress a 14-year-old son, he doesn't care what I make. He's happy with a grilled cheese most days. So if I
Who
make
isn't?
an elaborate dish, it's not a grilled cheese.
Excellent. Okay, Avery. Well, thank you for introducing yourself. And obviously, I know you, so I can talk forever about certain things and all the experiences. But I think the best place to start any chat is with a process. And I forgot to tell you about this. I can't believe this. I normally in our pre-chat tell you the sort of questioning format. It's something that is based on what I do, storytelling, and it's called The Hero Journey by Joseph Campbell. And it's actually a storytelling technique, but it works really well for questioning as well. So every hero's journey starts at the beginning. The origin story, a very popular thing around the world at the moment. So can I ask, what is your origin story? What brought you in to podcasting? And you can start at the birth if you want. You can go all the way back to the beginning. But what was the inspirations? What was the passions? And what got you to where you are now?
I was thinking about this the other day because I heard a quote a while ago, and it's, you can't always connect the dots going forward, but you can always connect the dots going backwards. So I was thinking about this with my professional career, but also my podcasting career. And it's interesting that you brought it up because it started out, I was running a small cafeteria in a local TV place here in Calgary. And I'd always listen to the radio. And sports radio. I just like sports radio. And they had this guest. I'd listen to Jim Rome, and I liked his takes on stuff. It was interesting. It was controversial. I liked his guests, but what really drew me in was when he had guest hosts, and he had the Sklar brothers on as guest hosts, and they would always have Mark Wahlberg call in, and he would just go on a tangent. And I was like, that can't be Mark Wahlberg because he's just going off on weird stuff and making fun of his brother, Donnie. And just and every time that I found out Sklar Brothers were hosting, I'd listen intently. And then I found out that they had a podcast, and that's what got me into listening podcasts. And then I found out who this Mark Wahlberg character was. It was one of their co-hosts on one of their podcasts, which was Daniel Van Kirk. And I started listening to his podcasts, and I became a big fan. And now he does stand-up. And like I said, I love stand-up.
Yeah.
And then I got another job where I was commuting, and I'd listen to more and more podcasts. And some days my drive home is an hour long, an hour and a half long, depending on traffic. So I'd have a lot of time to get podcasting in. And then, almost like I said earlier, I thought, well, maybe I should do a podcast. I'm going to these comedy shows. I like seeing them.
Yeah.
But I wonder what their opinion is. And I was looking at different podcasts, and there wasn't anything like that. And I'm sure there might be. I hear comedians talking about food a lot, and not just Jim Gaffigan, who is awesome at talking about food, and I really love
he is.
But if you listen to candid interviews with comedians, I listened to the Crab Feast, which was an awesome podcast, which is no longer being made, but there was that, and there was Scarborough County, and topic of food often comes up in just general conversations, and I thought maybe I should just make a podcast where I'm talking to these guys about food. So, and I tell you, the first interview I did, I was awfully nervous, and I always thought,
who was your first guest? Can we ask?
Why can't I think of his name right off the bat? It was 140 guests ago. It will come to me.
Yeah. Okay. Continue your origin.
Yeah. I always thought interviews where I'd have a piece of paper in front of me, and I'd look down at it and say, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite restaurant? So I'd always be doing this, and then probably about the fourth episode or something, like it's like, why am I just reading off this paper? Why am I the one talking? I just want to ask questions and hear these other people talk. So I just ask broader questions and just have people talking. And
Yeah.
like I've done interviews where I've only asked 3-4 questions and just let the guests talk and just sit there and just listen to their story. And it's so awesome. And I love that in a podcast. And I love just listening to people talk sometimes. So I guess that's my origin story.
Cool. Yeah, I'm actually loving that because what again I forgot to tell you, because I mentioned in our pre-talk with all the world going to burning. Let's just say the world is burning. My head is effectively up my arse at the moment. Yes, I'm admitting it to the world. My wife, my mother, everyone will be like, we've known that for years. But it's like what you're actually saying is so accurate, because that's how I love doing this podcast as well. This video podcast. Basically, my idea is to allow you to talk. This is all about you. I will ask a few questions, but hopefully you will just ramble, go off in tangents, tell anecdotes, and have fun. And that is the idea of the show.
Yeah.
The world record for the show for the longest period of time with only one question being asked has been about an hour and 16 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. I've got about 12 questions. Normally I get through 4.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I like to talk. I don't talk that much. Maybe I should have got my wife to do the interview instead. It seems like she talks to me all day and I'll just be there silently.
Careful, laddie. You're treading in dangerous ground there.
It's nothing that she doesn't know. One time I paid her for 10 minutes or 20 minutes of silence. And she said it was the hardest $10 she's ever earned. And then she still married me after that.
Oh, fabulous. I love that you actually pay. I think most people should be trying that with me. Yeah. Okay, folks, here's the new how to make money. Pay me to be quiet. So you were actually saying something about your first podcast, and I really find it quite funny because when I developed this show, I actually have 3 shows that I wanted to start developing. This one was going to be more generic, just talking to anyone. I wanted to do a comedy podcast, interviewing comedians, because I love stand-up as well. And then I wanted to kind of look at a paranormal one, which will come probably down the line. So I just think it's really funny, the parallels that we're with what we've done and what we're trying to do here. Yeah. And I'm kind of like, every time I talk to people, I'm finding out now that, we've done interview podcasts for years, Calum. You're so behind the ball.
Well, that's how I felt. Like, there's a lot of interview podcasts out there, but nobody was talking to comedians about food. So
yeah. Well, it's a nice blend, comedians and food. I'll need to. I take it it's still online. Is it still available?
Oh yeah, I still have all my episodes out there. Still on iTunes and stuff. So
yeah. Well, what's it called? So our listeners can track it down.
It's called the Messhall Podcast.
Oh no! Oh, so the comedy one was still the Messhall.
Yeah. It just transformed over time. So.
Oh, right. So it's this one.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought your comedy one was different. So yeah, now that you said that, I'm realizing what you said in your intro. Yeah. So all blended. For some reason, I put them into 2 different formulas because having been on the Messhall, I was kind of like, that's not the comedy podcast he's talking about.
Yeah, like I said, it started off as that, and then it sort of morphed into something else.
Fantastic. And it's morphed into something quite interesting. So tell everyone a wee bit more about the Messhall, what it is now, because I've been on it and I loved it. But just to give people a cheeky taster. Oh, did you see what I did there, Avery?
Yeah, I did. I liked it. I love puns, and we try to throw in probably not as many food puns as I would like, but we throw in some.
What was your head count? You were telling me you got an episode of how many?
Oh, I don't know how many food puns I got in. I should start counting them, though. I should put a little bell beside me and put sound effects on each food pun. But that would
I've said that for this one when people tell bad jokes. I really want the roadcaster so I can just hit the button.
Yeah, but like I said, we're just trying foods. Like nothing too serious. Like the last one we did was where we tried fair foods. So since there was no Calgary Stampede this year and there's no fairs going on anywhere, well, maybe Florida, but we thought, what are the typical foods you find at, and whether it's Calgary Stampede or any local fair. So mini donuts was one. So instead of just doing regular mini donuts, we tried the new McDonald's mini donuts, and then and they were really good. They're giving Tim Hortons a run for their money, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
So because Tim Hortons, wait a minute. Give me a second. Forget it. Product placement. We might get sponsored. Tim Hortons do their Timbits, which are yummy.
They are. They have a new a Fruit Loop Timbit, which is really good.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so what makes the McDonald's ones competition?
They had like a Boston cream donut, and they had a maple donut, and they had a strawberry filled donut, and they had a lot of filling in there. Like, we don't want to have a whole donut when we're doing the podcast because there's a lot of chewing stuff. So usually we just chop them and cut them up. And when I cut into it, filling squirted out. So when I saw that, I'm like, that really doesn't happen at a Tim Hortons donut anymore.
Yeah.
So I was kind of surprised, and I was delighted almost to see that, there's actual filling in these filled donuts. And so that's the kind of stuff we're doing. Like, and we're not bad-mouthing Tim Hortons. We try not to bad-mouth anybody because they still
of course.
Stuff. Like I said, they're now making these Fruit Loop Timbits, and they're delicious. But we've done a lot of local stuff lately as well. Like we got some mystery boxes from some candy stores in Calgary, and we started off with a mystery box from one of the Italian stores in Calgary, and it was so good. And just some really good stuff in there. And then sometimes we're just out and about, and we're like, we have to have that product on. Yeah. And like, I was in a candy store, and I saw these pop in a fridge, and I was thinking, well, I'll just go check it out, see what kind they have. I might just get myself a Coke because I saw cinnamon Coke. Like, I've never tried that, so I want to try it. But then they had ranch flavored pop, like ranch dressing flavored.
Really?
Yeah, that was probably the weirdest one to try.
Okay.
They had pickle flavor, they had bacon flavor, they had peanut butter jelly flavor, they had birthday cake flavor. So that was one of our podcasts because we just saw it and we were like, we have to have it.
And you know what? Where was this in Calgary? Because this sounds fun.
Those were at the Gummy Boutique in Kensington. So almost kitty corner to the Scottish shop, which we were in when you were on our episode. And we went in there and talked to the one of the workers, and she was awesome. And she helped us pick out some stuff. And I know when we were talking beforehand, and you said you have to have Iron Brew.
Yeah, of course.
And I personally like Iron Brew. I've had it before, so I was really excited for that and trying other stuff. And it's not too hard to get excited for us trying new stuff. And I really like it. Like, just we never know what we're going to try sometimes. And it's really, like, we always try to have stuff that we haven't had before, but sometimes we do. Like, we haven't had Pop Rocks in, I don't know, the last time I had Pop Rocks was probably about 20 years ago.
That would make for some interesting podcast sounds.
It does. And usually I try to edit out all of the chewing and stuff in post-production. But with the Pop Rocks, I put my mouth right up to the microphone. And you could still hear that popping sound. And I just thought that was awesome. So I didn't want to edit that out. But like I said, we haven't had Pop Rocks in 20 years, maybe even 30. And I'm probably going to date myself when my age there.
No, don't worry. I think I'm taking the age bracket in this show. You're still a whippersnapper.
But we've had it 3 times in the last 6 weeks now. So just different flavors and different mystery boxes where they show up. And it's
So these mystery boxes, I need to ask, is this something that a lot of shops are doing online at the moment?
No, what I was doing was I'd email a company and say, hey, I'm doing a local podcast. So I'm trying to support local. I have a budget. I'm not looking for anything free because like I want to support local as much as I can.
Of course, yeah.
And I say, here's my budget. Can you put something together for me? And they do. And we were opening up those live on air. And I never really got box openings because I know it's on YouTube a lot. Like,
They're huge money.
and
They're
it wasn't until I started opening them live, like, there is a really excitement there. Like, we were excited. Like, we had like the Gummy Boutique, and we had another company that built us a mystery box of nostalgia candy, like old fashioned candies. And when we were opening that, like wax lips were in there, and pop rocks, and pixie sticks, and just the excitement of being a kid again.
yeah.
Now my mother's not telling me I can't have so much. Well, and my wife is telling me I can only have so much.
I love that. Yeah. Oh no, that's great. I like the concept. So, you have your guests on. Do you ever focus? I mean, you did for me, obviously, which I appreciated. But do you ever try and focus the foods for the guests, or is it a fairly random process, depending on what episode when you've got a guest on?
It all depends on the guest and the episode. Like when I had you on, we taped a whole bunch at the same time. Like we probably did about 8 or 9 podcasts within a 2-week period. And like you were doing Scottish foods, and we had some other people on. And we just said, hey, we can't really tie it into your podcast. Is there something you would like? And somebody said, I love ice cream. So I just went out and bought some local ice creams, and it was a really good episode, but I was so disappointed in myself with the audio quality.
Oh.
So that was the biggest disappointment there. But then somebody else said, well, they want to do popcorn. Kyle Marshall.
Oh, yeah.
He wanted to do popcorn. So we just had a whole bunch of popcorn, and then
another very noisy and difficult one to eat.
Yeah. And then we had somebody else that does a movie podcast. So it was coming up to Oscar time. So we wanted to tie sort of her podcast in with being movies and Oscars. And then we were trying foods that we found in movies. So
that's another member of the Alberta Podcast Network, if I remember.
Yeah, re-podcasting. So Thea was on, and she was awesome. But we had like White Castle burgers. We had Reese's Pieces because they were featured in the E.T. movie. And
oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Lena does all the research for that, and she does an awesome job. And I don't know what she's going to talk about in the research beforehand, but she was one of the cool things like on that podcast was she talked about Reese's Pieces and how first M&M was offered the product placement and they turned it down.
That's right. I remember hearing this. Yeah.
And then they went to Reese's Pieces and their sales went through the roof, like expanded like 300% or something crazy. And, so product placement does work in movies. And we, like on that one, we did a Coke versus Pepsi test, and we did Harry Potter jelly beans, and those were kind of disgusting, but fun. Yeah, but we had Vanda from the Tight Ends podcast over for our Super Bowl one.
Yeah.
So we put in football, and because she does a football podcast and Super Bowl all together. Like I said, that was fun again. And so if we can, we try to tie it in with somebody and their podcast. And if not, we just usually say, hey, what do you like? And then we'll just try to tie it in with something they like.
I like it. So just having fun, eating food, or tasting, sampling food, and creating a podcast. That's pretty fun, Avery. And it was. I mean, I'm speaking from experience. We had, what was it? Haggis chips.
Yeah.
We had the Iron Brew. There was some candies that I can't remember. I remember one of them was really crunchy, and we.
Yeah. The cheeky. We talked about the cheeky ads for Iron Brew that they have. So.
But they were the old Iron Brew ads. So Avery has some experience in kind of with his research and stuff like that. If nobody has ever seen a early Iron Brew ad from Scotland. These were adverts that they were cheeky. They played with it. The winter one, for example, they literally did the snowman. The whole theme tune, the cartoon snowman, the young boy, and basically at one point I think the boy tries to steal his Iron Brew, or the boy's got an Iron Brew and the snowman wants it and the boy refuses. So the snowman steals it and drops the boy from a great height to his death. That's what Iron Brew did, and they were just awesome.
Yeah. And it's
So-
still one of my favorites to this day that I've had on the podcast and personally. So
Yeah.
I could talk about Iron Brew for hours.
So we've got a question coming in. Do you have any favorite treats?
Oh, geez. Treats. I don't know if I have a favorite treat. I always try to try different things, but you know what? Actually, I do. Spearmint green leaves are one of my favorites.
Okay.
They're just like little gummy candies. They're probably about like this big, and they're green. They have the spearmint flavor, and they've been around forever, and they're great.
Okay, that's an interesting one. So a more fresh treat than a sweet
Yeah.
treat.
Oh, they're still sweet. They're probably about 98% sugar and 1% gummy and 1% color.
So they're good.
Yeah.
So they're good. Excellent. I'm always a toffee fan, sort of things, caramels or toffees.
Yeah.
That's my passion.
I do enjoy a good Werther's original.
Oh yes.
Yeah. That's
yes.
that's definitely around at Christmas time, and I usually get a bag somehow. Somebody always gives me a bag somewhere.
Yeah.
I have to hide that one from Lena because that's my personal one, and that's
Yeah.
I don't.
The in-laws have always got some in a wee jar when we go over for supper. So it's like literally it's a wee tub and it sits in the side. And by the time me and my beautiful wife have left, it's usually empty.
That's nice. I'd probably do the same. I'd clear.
Yeah.
So
And just stashing them. It's not even eating them while I'm there. I'm literally.
well, you need something then. If there's
Yeah.
a difficult question, you can pop it in your mouth so you don't have to answer. You
That's
want one
it,
when you
yeah.
drive home. You want one for when you get home. So you're just preparing yourself.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask a personal question here. How many times have you accidentally nearly choked on one?
Probably a couple. Usually it's like if I'm having one and then I see somebody else going for my stash and then getting up and running and then choking on it.
Yeah.
That's trying to protect what's mine.
There's something about Werther's that they basically, every so often, if you're not careful, they literally will launch down your throat.
I like to savor them so they're in my mouth for a while. Then sometimes you forget that it's there and you just suck it back.
And there's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a beautiful, dangerous treat.
Yeah.
So, podcasting. You got into podcasting and you've kind of given us your background story. This next question may not apply to you, but you've mentioned you've had help with performers and even podcasting. Everything is, to me, is the arts that falls under that bracket. And at some point we've had guidance or a mentor or some development. Have you had a mentor? Is there somebody that's been quite prominent in your podcasting development that's helped you along the way, that's been there to answer the questions? And would you have continued if you didn't have that person?
I have a friend that's really good at audio engineering, and he helped me out a lot in my first days. And I don't know if I'd still be doing it without him, but I think my quality wouldn't be there. Like, if I want to get a new mic, I don't go to the store and ask the guy at the store. I ask my friend, like, what do I need for a mic? I want to upgrade my equipment. What do I need? And he'll tell me, well, you should get this, this, and this, or, and I've asked him, like, I used to use just a little USB mic hooked up to the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I want to upgrade. And he said, well, get an H5N. And he said,
Mike.
And I didn't know what that was. I had no clue. And he helped me out. I ended up getting an H4N, which is still really good. And he has an H6N. And he showed me, and there's all kinds of knobs. And And then when I want to go from having 2 people on the podcast to 3, again, I asked him, what do I need? He told me I needed a mixing board. And I bought this mixing board and it has like spots for 6 mics on it. And I'm like, what are all these knobs for? And he's like, just use this knob and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Everything else is better. So not knowing audio engineering and having somebody like that to really help me. And his name's Danny. He's been on my podcast, and yeah, like I said, he's been great help all throughout all 100 and almost 40 episodes now. Like, he's always been there and helping answer those questions. And usually I send him a message on Messenger text, and he can't see the tears rolling down my eyes from how is this ever going to work? And, so he's been really there. I guess also my wife, like, there were times where I was having trouble getting guests, and like, usually I try to bank 2 or 3 episodes, and I was having trouble getting more guests to come on. And she's like, and I was like, do I really want to do this anymore? It's causing me stress now.
Yeah.
More of a job than a hobby.
Yeah.
And she'd encourage me, like, hey, you love doing it. You love talking to people. And she'd always be there for me, just to give me a kick in the butt and get me out of the house and encourage me in a good way to, you're going to find somebody, you're going to get a good interview. So she's always been there. And like,
good. Yeah. They're very handy, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very useful. I was about to say devices. That's the wrong word to call your wives. They're very useful creatures. They keep us in check, and they also support us when we're having our moments.
Yeah. So sometimes it's good when she's not silent.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I have a couple fans along the way that like give good feedback, and so that was always encouraging. Like, hey, I listened to your podcast this week. It was really good. I really like this part of the podcast. I like what you did here. So it was always good to hear positive feedback or just constructive feedback, because nobody ever said your podcast was crap and I don't want to ever listen to it again. And so, yeah, there's always people giving encouraging words.
Excellent. So you hit on a couple of things there that I'm kind of intrigued about. So the guest comment, I laughed at, because guests are wonderful,
Yes.
but it's so hard work trying to get people on. Did you have any techniques that you developed over time? And I'm almost asking from my perspective to help you get guests on, because I've been very lucky so far, but I know it's challenging to get guests. So for anyone that's doing an interview style podcast, what sort of advice have you got for them?
Yeah, I say just be honest about what you do. When I would email people, I'd lay it out. Like, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I like to do. Here's how much time I'm going to take up. I never wanted to leave that open-ended, because some people's time is very valuable, and maybe they don't have 3 hours, and maybe they're not knowledgeable about lengths of podcasts, and they like to listen to Joe Rogan, who does a 3-hour podcast, but that's not my style. I always said, hey, I like to do a podcast. I try to keep it to 30 to 40 minutes, and so just telling people up front what's expected of them, so they're not, well, I don't feel like doing a podcast because it takes too long. Oh, it's only going to be 30 minutes. I can fit that in. And one of the things that, like changing equipment, like I had a H4n and a couple mics and small mic tabletop stands, I was able to go to people. So especially when I was interviewing comedians, being able to go to somebody, so they're not used to Calgary, and they're not going to know, hey, I live way up in Silver Springs. Can you come to my house? I'd always be able to say, I can come to you. I have a mobile set up, so whatever works for you, whatever day. And then I guess also having a flexible job where if I can kick out a half hour early or an hour early so I can go do an interview, was able to do that a lot. So
Yeah.
have a flexible job.
Excellent. Now, the other thing you broached upon is the tech side. So I'm thinking, because you're my first podcasting guest, and by that I mean someone who does a podcast. So I'm thinking we can help maybe educate people who are interested in podcasting. You mentioned your technology. So how did you begin? What did you start with when you got this idea to do a podcast? What was the beginning equipment?
I started out with a laptop and a USB mic that I found off Kijiji for $25. So it wasn't a huge setup, but I was able to set it up between two people, and it picked up everything, whether the fridge was going off or traffic outside. It was picking up everything, and that's what some of those USB mics do.
Yeah.
So, but then just upgrading eventually to a regular microphone and just real better equipment, like just investing more into my hobby, basically.
Yeah. So what was the process? How long did it take you to go from that USB to, say, what was your next mic? Was it
It was the H4n.
It was the H4 was your next mic. So how long did that take you?
It took me about 20 episodes, maybe. So, like, I felt like I wanted better quality.
Yeah.
So that's why I went to the H4n, and I'm looking at it right now because I have everything right beside me. So.
Show off. Yep. Oh, yeah.
Guy.
So you, sorry, I forgot. You're using the Zooms, the basically the H4n. And for anyone who's not familiar with that technology, the Zooms are basically field recording equipment, but some of them, the H4 also works as an audio interface, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I basically have, I hope I don't lose it here, but I have a microphone. That wire runs into the H4n, and it works for me. I didn't have the microphone at first, so it would just record off these two mics here. Yeah. But then when I went to the real microphones, it started to really up the audio level. So it was really nice, and it was noticeable. So small things like that were really noticeable. Like, I don't have $800 mics because that's not what I need it for. So I just have Shure 58 mics, and they're great for podcasting. I really do believe that. So,
yeah. So, but what you're saying, pretty much for anybody who's interested, because one of the biggest challenges of podcasting or doing anything is it's that startup. Do you go outrageous and buy it all, or do you do it slowly? I've done it slowly. It sounded like you do. You started with what was necessary. Yep, it's not great, but then you build it up.
Yeah, and I think if you're starting out slowly, if you don't like podcasting and you invested all this money into it, and you do like 5-6 episodes and you turn out, well, I hate doing this. I hate the sound of my voice, and everybody hates the sound of my voice, but which everybody thinks.
Yes.
But, then you're not out $100. Like I had no idea how long I'd last doing a podcast, and that's why I only bought this $25 mic, and that's what worked for me. And then, I like doing it, and I thought my listeners were liking it, and I was thinking the people that I was interviewing was like talking about what they were talking about. So that's why I wanted to continue to upgrade. And like I said, now I have a mixing board with different mics and like microphone arms, because the tabletop ones weren't working. Because if we're trying different foods on the table, and it's a huge mess sometimes, and trying to work around a microphone stand is kind of, so we got these like microphone arms like this.
Yeah.
So
boom arms.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm going to mess up my sound, but there we go. They are the most useful thing on the planet.
So we can put it anywhere, and I know my wife can sometimes not put it in front of her and mess up the sound, and I get mad at her and she gets mad at me, but that's the biggest fight that we have on the podcast. But then that goes into audio editing as well. Like I started out with GarageBand, and it was a fine program. But then I had a free preview of Hindenburg Audio, and I know some people use Audacity, and that's fine. I could never get used to it.
No.
When I tried Hindenburg Audio, it just blew my mind. I can do twice the work in half the time. Like it's for me, the user interface was real easy. So it does cost a little bit more to do it, but for me, it was well worth it. So
yeah, and that's another interesting point, because I actually looked at Hindenburg, and I had been working with Adobe Audition,
yeah,
and I could not get the hang of Hindenburg because I was given a free year subscription to it, and I was just like, yeah, I can't. You know, it's the audio interface stuff is really interesting, because once you get used to one, it's really hard to convert to another.
Yeah, and I heard that like some people have told me the same thing. Like GarageBand is similar to Hindenburg, but Hindenburg is a little bit more advanced. And GarageBand was great, but Audacity and Adobe are very similar. So I know people that use both of those and say the same thing about Rock Band and Hindenburg. Like, they're just not what they want. So I think it's almost like whether you like a MacBook laptop or a Windows laptop. So whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You either you love Apple, you hate them. You love Microsoft, you hate them.
Yeah.
So, one of the things I was going to ask you is about your timing. Someone's actually asked a question, but I'm going to ask a slightly different variant than ask that one, just so the audience has an idea, because I think people don't quite understand the work that goes into them. Because I actually discovered when I was doing podcasts, it became a job.
Yeah.
In itself, it became a job. So how long does recording, editing, and getting it out there, what would you say your average episode costs you in hours every week?
I would say almost 4 hours every week, sometimes 5. But by the time I go buy food, go home, Lena does research. Recording the episode only takes 35, 40 minutes, sometimes 50 minutes. But then, doing the audio background with that, trying to find guests, emailing, and social media. Once it's done, getting it out there, just trying to get your name out there a little bit more. Yeah, probably about 4 hours each episode.
Yeah. And you do quite a lot of bulk episodes all in one run, you were saying.
I did at one point before COVID, just because I could just, just trying to get a whole bunch done at once. And it was just easier for us that way. But now we record every Monday night, and we just do one episode a week. So
that's what I always found. Just do one episode and then get it out. And I still am terrible. Someone's actually asking an interesting question here. And I think I know why they're asking it, because it's one of those things I suffer from. How do you keep things on time if you have a time limit?
Well, we don't have a time limit, I guess. I have a general time that I want to get it done by, or have on the podcast. And just a study I saw a long, long time ago was like 42 minutes was the ideal length for a podcast, and there were studies done about it. But I also just look at how long is a commute for most people, because I think most people listen to podcasts in cars, or while cooking, or while doing dishes, just those routine, mundane stuff. So that's why, for me, I just try to keep it around the 30, 40-minute mark. So,
and how do you keep your guest interviews in check then? How do you make sure that runs smoothly? Because I know that can sometimes, it can go off and it can be delayed and there can be hiccups.
And I've run into that before. I was interviewing somebody and they just went on a tangent, and it was an awesome interview, and I just didn't want to stop it.
Yeah.
And I think for me, trying to, I really, right now, we know how long it will take us to try most things in a ballpark range. So we only try about 6 items per episode, because sometimes we've tried 8 items and 9 items, and it just goes way too long for us. And then we just feel fatigue at the end where, okay, do I really want to try another thing? Especially one time we did Kit Kats, and we tried 17 different Kit Kats on one episode.
That's a lot of sugar.
It was a lot of sugar, and like we're just trying little pieces of it, but it was just by the end of it, we're like, okay, this is a little bit too much. We should have done this over 3 episodes, and so we're really cut down a lot on how much we do, even though we don't want to, because like I said, if we go to a store and we see 7, 8 things that we really want to try, and then sometimes we'll do a like a random odds and ends episode. Like when we were getting stuff for the Scottish episode with you, we saw the haggis chips, but we also saw turkey and gravy chips. So we did those on another episode. So sometimes we see stuff and we just have to put it aside. We have a little bin in our basement that all of our podcast stuff is in, and it's like, hey, well, we just wanted to try this one thing, and how are we going to fit it in? So sometimes we'll build an episode around that, or we'll just do just a random episode. So I guess that's a long way about it, but we just figured out how we can figure out time. So.
No, that's perfect. And tangents are allowed on this show. I'm kind of laughing because you're like, 42 minutes is the perfect length for a podcast. And I've had a guest on for about 2 hours, 15 minutes because it just tangented everywhere. It was great. And I just let people go for it. I try not to. I always say book them for that kind of hour to hour and a half slot. And I'm like, and then it's gone over so many times. It's been ridiculous. Apart from Byron, kept him in check.
One of my favorite podcasts, though, is 4 hours long.
Wow, yeah.
But he only does it once. There's no set schedule for him to come out. So sometimes it comes out every 6 months. Sometimes it's 8 months. Sometimes he does 2 in a year. But Dan Carlin, Hardcore History, I don't think he needs any plugs, but
I'll edit that out, just
like his series on whatever topic he's talking about sometimes it takes 2 years. Wow. So I won't listen to it for a year or two, and then I'll come back and like 4 episodes, and this is taking 3-4 weeks to listen to, but it's so worth it.
Yeah. Well, my view is, because I do it as well, when you're listening to a podcast, if you're enjoying it, doesn't matter how long or short it is. Exactly. You can pause it and come back to it. I've done that so many times. One of my favorites of late, I'm a great fan of Bill Burr.
Yeah.
We're talking about comedians, and I loved his Monday Musings, which could be anything up to about 2 hours. And then I got really into the Ron Burgundy podcast.
Oh, okay.
With Will Ferrell, and that was just brilliant. That was just so well acted and performed. And they're all longer podcasts. You just pause them, you come back to them.
Yeah. And if you really enjoy it, that's what you do. And I know I do that a lot. I just that was my personal feeling when I started my podcast, that I want to keep this length. So
excellent. So another wee question come in. Have you ever tried making your own candy after trying so many others, or come up with your own chip ideas?
That's a brilliant idea. I've never made my own flavored candies. After doing the pop episode, I told my wife we should get a soda stream so we can make our own weird pops. But maybe I'll have to try different chip flavors.
Hey, there's your merch to sell.
Yeah. You never know what you're going to get in the next bite.
That's it. You could have that advertised. There's a wee bit of merchandise for the podcast, add-on sales. Yeah, it all works.
But I do like making food, so I haven't done that in years. I like the sugar work is pretty awesome. I like doing that, so making candy around that would be kind of fun.
Fantastic. I think you should. And honestly, like on your on the website, have a little shop to sell them.
Yeah.
And T-shirts and baseball caps and spoons and spurtles. Oh, you could do a line in spurtles. Hi for the honey. Oh, the porridge. Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
You like a good spurtle? We have one in the house.
Yeah.
So for making oatmeal, and I don't make
Yep.
oatmeal too often on the stove, but when I do, I make sure I use my spurtle. Not everybody knows what a spurtle is, so I love that you brought it up.
Yeah, that's it. See, honestly, you're missing a trick here, Avery. The Messhall podcast merch could be big.
Yeah,
Obviously, the problem is food hygiene,
yeah,
but you know how to deal with that.
yeah. I know. I work in a professional kitchen, so
Yeah, you're sorted. You're sorted. So, oh, and there's my friend Cindy saying they sell spurtles. Well, you should. You know me, Cindy. You better sell spurtles. So someone else is asking, you're a big fan of buying local,
yeah.
but have you ever, I believe I know the answer to this, but I'll just check for the audience. Have you ever used international? I mean, is international food something you do quite often as well? Or are you very strong about just trying to make sure you pick it up locally?
No, we do a lot of international stuff. We're not just local. Lately has been that it's a lot easier for us, but sometimes we'll order food off of Amazon, like just some prepackaged food, or we'll go to T&T Market, which is the Asian superstore here, and we did a whole chip episode of what we found there, and yeah, like Italian. One of the local stores was Italian food, so it was all imported Italian chocolates and chips and stuff. So yeah, we're not opposed to going anywhere. Like when I said 17 Kit Kats, those were all Japanese Kit Kats.
Really?
Yeah. So sometimes when we had Ruby Red Kit Kat on the episode about 3 weeks ago, I do believe, and I said, it was a good Kit Kat, but I'd just rather something plain and simple like a chestnut Kit Kat or a yam Kit Kat. So just some of those fun things that we.
They sound hideous.
Chestnut Kit Kat was amazing. I was not expecting it to be good, and so was dumpling, rice dumpling Kit Kat was really, really good as well.
I could maybe see that one.
Yeah.
What's wrong with just a Kit Kat?
Well, they're good too. Just it's interesting to see what other flavors are out there in the international world. So that's what we try to do sometimes is like there's so many places that have different flavors of stuff. That's like Kit Kat has all kinds of different flavors, obviously, but Lego chips has all kinds of different flavors too. Like they have this hot pot chip, and they have lime chips, and they have cucumber chips, which are horrible. But that's what we like to do is if we can find that one thing that we find normal, whether it's Kit Kat or Lay's chips or something like that, and we find an international version of it, we like to try those things.
Yep.
So that's always fun for us. We never know what we're going to get sometimes.
Yeah, the variety is the one thing that gets me. I'm just blown away by the different things that you've got on the show, and the Kit Kats, that confuses me.
Yeah,
I'm a very simple man. Things should just be, as I like them. That's it.
What we've been really trying to do lately is get different Pop-Tart flavors because there's a lot of different Pop-Tart flavors, and so we were planning on a trip down to the States in the summer, but that's obviously not happening right now. But maybe we're going to order them.
Don't go near there. Stay away.
We want to stay away.
Stay away. Just leave them alone. Let them do their thing. Sorry to all my friends in the States, but just no.
But they send us Kit Kat or Pop-Tarts if they have them. Different flavors. Because there's a ton of international Pop-Tart flavors. So that's
right.
Yeah. So like one of our favorite international episodes was candy canes. We did that at Christmas time, and it was a company in the States that make different flavor candy canes. So we had kale flavor candy canes. We had bacon flavor. We had, I think it was root beer flavor. We had, and my personal favorite, they were disgusting, but I really wanted to try them, was clam canes. So they were clam flavored candy canes, and they tasted like clams. It was a candy cane that tasted like clams. You look confused, but
you're breaking me, Avery. You're breaking me. That just sounds awful.
Oh, it was awful, but it was so fun to try.
Oh my God. But yet they have not done haggis.
No, just the haggis chips.
Yeah, damn them. Damn them to their little candy cane hearts.
If I found a different item of haggis, I'd definitely have that on the podcast. Like I'm always looking for those weird things, like I said, client favorite candy canes or haggis chips. I'm always looking for those fun items. So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, that's what's good. I mean, there's so much with food. You have such a huge variety of different styles.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're only kind of doing little snack things. I mean, do you ever sit down to a full banquet?
We did one time. We had a Thanksgiving episode, and I'm going to call it the lost episode because we had 3 mics. We had 4 people. And what we did is when we try foods, we try to do it so it's something that somebody else can try. So we're not always making food unless it's like a packaged food or something. So if somebody wants to try what we have had, it's not my personal recipe. It's something that is easily accessible to somebody. So what we tried was turkey dinner. So we had everything but turkey. So we had stovetop stuffing, but we also had no-name stuffing. We had cranberry sauce, but we had like no-name cranberry sauce. So we had 2 of everything. So we tried like a brand versus no-name, and we had about 6 or 7 items, and it was so much fun. And like we had instant mashed potatoes, and we had like 2 different instant mashed potatoes. And so we had packaged gravy versus canned gravy.
Okay.
So it was a whole turkey dinner except for the turkey. We had 2 of everything, and it was so disappointing that we lost that episode. The audio quality was just so bad that.
What a shame.
Yeah, but it was so much fun, and it was probably the biggest food items that we've ever had. So,
well, maybe you should redo it.
I think we will next Thanksgiving. Now that we have better technology, like we now have 4 mics, so we can have 4 people on, and yeah.
Someone's saying that there's all those kind of snack packs that you can get from different countries.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, are they not subscription boxes rather than just individuals?
A lot of them are subscription boxes, and we've looked into that, but we just didn't want to keep on promoting that one company every month. So that's why we try to go out to get different things. It would be so much easier to get the subscription box. It would take 1 episode every month, but like I said, I think it would become very repetitive for us.
Yeah.
So
I'm just thinking it must become rather frustrating as well, doing all these shopping trips and occasionally failing because they don't have the items that you desperately want.
Yeah, it does, but it also, that's what makes it fun for us as well. Because if we can't find that one item, sometimes we found 3 other items that we just stumbled across. And that's something we do a lot, is find those 3 other items. So
excellent. So when you've been podcasting now for so many episodes, can you remember a point where you actually realized this was it? Was there an episode that, it was almost like that threshold and you went, I'm just sold. This is what I want to do until I can't do it anymore. Can you remember that time? And was there a particular episode? Or?
Yeah, it was. I guess it was a time. There was a comedy festival in Banff, and I was interviewing Big Daddy Taz, comedian from Winnipeg. I didn't mean to interview him. He was on the card, and I was just trying to get more than one interview that weekend, and I just emailed some of the other guys and gals that were on the podcast because the person that I really wanted to do, he's a comedian, but he used to be a chef, so I really wanted him on the podcast. And just from other people comedians that I was interviewing, they're like, "You have to interview this guy." if he ever comes to Calgary, you have to interview him. So I went to Banff for the day to do this 2 interviews, and it was probably about 35 minutes into the interview with Big Daddy Taz, and I'm like, thanks for being on the podcast. It was great, and it was so much fun because he was such a good talker, and he's like, we can't wrap this up. We have to do another episode. So, and that just blew my mind that he wants to do another episode. I didn't ask him to. So we did 2 episodes right there and then, and it was like, I love doing this. And like the next interview went great as well, but it's just like, oh, somebody really likes talking to me about this, and that's what really boosted my confidence and kept me going. Like, wow, I really love doing this now. And I was enjoying it before, but that, like you said, what really propelled me to keep on going, that was it. Like,
nice.
And like I left that day like just this ecstatic feeling, like, wow, that was amazing. I can't believe he wanted to do 2 episodes. He wanted to spend like an hour and a half with me just talking, and it was so much fun. I felt like I could have did just a podcast with him forever. Like, it was just cool.
What a wonderful experience.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And then now let's see, on the reverse of that, has there ever been a point that you've nearly given it up, that it's gone so wrong, just on a level that you're just like, nah, I can't keep doing this? Have you been close to that ever?
I've been close to that. It was probably like soon before I switched over to having Lena on the podcast, where it was like, do I want to keep on doing this? See, it's getting hard to get comedians on because, like I said, it was probably about 70 episodes in, 75 episodes at that point. And what was happening is comedians were coming back into town. Like they do. They just tour all over Canada.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to keep on asking the same people to be on. And then, some people just don't want to be on podcasts, or they don't have the time. And I never held a grudge against that, but it was just starting to get hard to get comedians, but also just local food people and stuff like that. And I was starting to reach for interviews, which I didn't want to. Like I was getting some really good guests on. Like I had some really good food people in Calgary on, and I never regretted having them on, but it was just getting harder and harder to find guests. And I was like, do I want to keep on doing that? And that's when my wife is like, we were just trying a couple things one night, and we were just talking about it, and like, maybe this could be the podcast. And it happened to be the new podcast. So, that it was a low point, but then it became a high point.
It evolved.
Yeah, it did.
Is someone snuck back in?
Yeah, I think my cat is around the corner scratching at the couch. So we recently got a cat, and we've had a dog for a while, and we recently got a cat, and it's been interesting.
It's okay. This show allows anything and everything to happen. So it's okay. I remember doing a podcast, and my audience said it was one of their favorite times when I was having an argument with one of my cats live on the podcast. So yeah, I love that. So you've had the ups and downs, you've had those beautiful moments. I totally understand that repetitiveness side, but I also love the fact that it evolved.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very important thing for anybody who's thinking about doing something like this. You need to you can't be precious. You've got to have that kind of like, let's see where it goes and how it evolves and grows. And I think that's an important lesson for anyone. So you and your wife, you took it on, you changed the format, and then you went. So how many episodes have you done with your wife?
Coming up to about 60 right now.
So it's definitely working then.
Yeah. We haven't got a divorce, and we're still going. We have our disagreements sometimes, but it still goes good.
And I will say to the audience, I have actually been on the podcast, and I know there are sharp objects usually within reach, and they are still kicking. Well, actually, wait a minute. There were supposed to be 2 guests tonight.
Yeah.
Is there a dark secret that you're not telling us?
Tune into the next week's Messhall podcast to find out where she is.
I love it. I love it. There you go, folks. You need to tune in to the Messhall podcast to find out if Avery's even there or if he's been carted away.
Yeah, but the podcasting bug has gotten into her too. Now,
Yeah.
We've been trying to decide for probably about the last month or so, what else do we want to do with podcasting? So
Fantastic.
We're thinking about doing another podcast where couples just try stuff and like just stuff that we think would be fun and just
You might now. I'm just going to use the term phrasing.
Yeah, and I purposely sound it like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're thinking about just like Lime scooters. We've never done the Lime scooters before, so just fun stuff that couples can do, and
Cool.
and we're doing that, and just some random stuff, nothing too important. Like we talked about escape rooms, and if we actually leave one or the other in the escape room and never see them again, and so.
And then there's the break room things as well. The ones where you just go smash things up.
I've seen those. That might be fun to do. That might be an individual one, but
again, that's heavy objects in the hand of your spouse if you've had an argument.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. But we also have a lot of sharp knives around, like you said. So
yeah, you guys are good. So you've got a couple of projects going. So that's one. Is there any other kind of things that you're looking at developing, or is it top secret at this stage?
That's the one with my wife. We've been trying to settle on a name and come up with a timeline and how to do it. So we're hopefully going to get that out sometime next month. And then I'm working, like I talked about my friend Danny, we've been trying to work on a project where we're going to watch live concerts and then talk about those because he's a huge music person. And,
nice.
So hopefully we're going to get that started soon. We recorded one, there were three of us and one person dropped out, but it was interesting because he knows a ton about music. So I was just asking him a whole bunch of questions of just random, like, what's the coolest guitar? Like, is the Flying V the ultimate coolest guitar? And he had a different opinion. I think it is, but that's just me because I like a lot of 80s metal and that hair music. So and when they're playing a Flying V, I think that's one of the coolest things in a music video. So
I love it. A little insight into you there.
Yeah.
A little insight. I'm just thinking, I like this show that you and your wife are developing. It's almost kind of got a feel of, and it's something that me and my wife struggle with as well. It's finding a date night or a date set. And I like that. You guys, it's almost like you are doing that, but you're putting it out to the world to say, here's ideas.
Yeah. And we thought about calling it Date Night, but that podcast name is already taken.
So, which is another challenge.
Yeah. So we've been trying to come up with a name, and we're not 100% sure on a name. I think we have one, but I don't want to say it out loud in case we don't like it later on. And
No, don't know. Once it's launched, another key thing for anybody who's looking at podcasting or anything like that, finding a name is really difficult. Finding a nice, catchy name, but also finding one that hasn't been taken.
Yes, exactly. Like when I first started, maybe I had the Messhall podcast, but there's also Major's Messhall. And so there was a little bit of confusion. We had some naming things on Twitter, but those guys are fine. They're good. We worked it out. So, making sure your name is a little bit different but
that's it. There's a great belief just going with your own name these days.
Yeah.
It's a practice that I did adopt for a while, but it's simply along the lines of nobody can take your name. So
yeah, that's a good idea too. Maybe that's something we can look at when we're naming our new podcast. So
well, that's it. It's just, it's always a challenge. And then the music review or show review podcast, that's a lovely idea as well.
Yeah.
Because that just gives people an insight. And also, I get the impression, so because everyone's got different musical tastes. Some people are more knowledgeable. And I always like when people are doing that show, that type of podcast, that there is somebody who's really knowledgeable. There's maybe someone in the middle, and then there's somebody who's just not quite in tune with it. And I think it always creates that nice blend.
Yeah, and that's what it was. I was definitely the person that was not quite in tune with it. Yeah.
But you're now looking for a third still.
I think we're just going to do it with two of us. Though.
Just do the two. Good show. Well, I mean, if it makes money, yeah, there you go, folks. Podcasting is not just about fun; it is a business. And if it makes money, it means you don't need to spread it out as much. And that's the bad side of me. It's like, why do you do so many solo projects, Calum? Because I'm greedy. But excellent. No, I love it. I love that you've got some new things coming up. Well, Avery, we're kind of getting on a wee bit, and I know that you've got family, so I don't want to keep you too much longer because, we have our family commitments.
I see them all the time. I don't need to get back anytime soon.
Again, I'll edit that bit out. But what we'll do is we'll move on to our quick fire 10 silly questions round. Now, I believe that Avery is the first guest to have actually reviewed the questions from listening or watching, because he already hit me with one earlier. So let's, this is my first guest that's cheated, and I can't do anything about it because he's halfway across the city. I can't slap his lugs for him. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
This one I'm going to ask first. Favorite kitchen utensil and why?
Wooden spoon. Obviously, it's the greatest item in the kitchen.
Explain.
It's very versatile. People might not look at it like that, but if you're using nonstick pans, you can use it. If you're using regular pans or pots, you use it. I love my wooden spoons. They're just, they're a little bit more versatile than the spurtle, but. If you don't have a spurtle to make oatmeal, you can still use a wooden spoon. If you're making something like pasta, you use a wooden spoon.
That's true. A spurtle is actually a luxury.
Yeah. But yeah, I love my wooden spoon. That's probably one of my favorite things.
Excellent. How do you feel about garden gnomes?
I don't mind them so much. They're all right. As long as they're not creepy ones. I like happy ones.
Yeah. We've got one along the road that I've mentioned before, and every time I'll walk the dog at night, I swear he's moved. Now, this just might be me, but he's doing a weird thing, and it looks like he's almost trying to do a fist bump.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't seem right, because that's almost enticing you to go over and fist bump him, and he's lurking in the shadows.
But if he's lurking in the shadows, he might not fist bump, maybe a kick bump or something.
Well, that's I think he's up to mischief.
Yeah.
Oh, someone's saying Viking garden gnomes. I like that idea. Everything's Viking at the moment. I like Viking garden gnomes.
I think I'd like to have Viking garden gnomes in my garden.
Yeah, that would actually be quite cool.
I don't want to see them in somebody else's garden.
Yeah. Well, the problem is if they're in someone else's garden, that pretty much means they have gone a Viking and raided that garden.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's going to not do you any favors in your neighborhood. Yeah. Okay.
Kid that runs up and down the street hasn't done me any favors. So
I know the answer to this one. Pineapple on a pizza.
Oh, it's terrific. It's great. It belongs there, and nobody can convince me otherwise. When a pineapple, like if you put it on top of the cheese, and when it cooks, and that sweetness, the juices from the pineapple pour over and get mixed in with the saltiness of the bacon, and because you can't have pizza without bacon, and the gooiness of the cheese and the crust. How can you not have it? It's delicious.
That sounded good.
Yeah, see? I convince people to
And
have.
ladies and gentlemen, this is why when you ask that question, you ask it to a chef. What about black olives, though, in the mix?
Oh no. I might just turn this podcast off right now. I'm not an olive fan. I do not like olives. I don't know why people put olives on anything. I don't know why olives would go on pizza or nachos. When I see olives on nachos, it just really grosses me out, and it shouldn't.
Sweet and salty, mate. Sweet and salty.
It's just this odd saltiness that I don't like, and
I can literally just sit and eat jars of black pickles quite happily. Black olives, sorry, quite happily.
like pickles, but
Pickles are lovely, no, but black olives just,
No.
I can munch on them all day. They're just an absolute joy in the mouth.
No, and there's foods that I don't like, but when I see olives on pizza, like I don't like mushrooms, but I'll pick them off, and I'm not going to complain. But when I see an olive on there, even if I pick it off, that flavor's still there, and I just can't enjoy it.
Oh, I'm going to say you're wrong, but you're my guest, so I can't. I need to back you. Okay. You are a chef. I'm giving you this.
Yeah.
Okay. You're stuck in an elevator with one person. Who is it? And it can be anyone.
Oh, that's a tough question because if it was just stuck for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but if it was stuck for several hours, it could be a different answer. If my wife's watching, it'd obviously be her. But I'd probably say, I'd probably say Jim Gaffigan. I think he talks about food, and I'd like to talk about food. So I think
that would be really awkward and fun.
Yeah, I think he'd just try to keep entertained somehow, and just talking to somebody like that would be a lot of fun for me. So.
He'd probably be moaning that there wasn't a nice, comfy seat.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's who I'd like to be stuck in an elevator with.
I like that. Nice answer. Okay. Why did the chicken cross the road?
To get away from being chicken nuggets.
Well, that got dark. Okay. Yeah, that went a bit dark there. I like it. Okay. What's the worst job you've ever done? Don't mention names of the job, just give a brief description if you can't mention anything else.
I wanted to say something dirty like my wife, but one of my first.
I'm sorry. Give me a minute, Avery. Let's soak that moment up.
She's old now, and
no.
I'm just taking myself in deper, but
you are.
I'd make those jokes if she was right here beside me. But
I know you would.
I had a job when I was younger, and I worked in a crab processing plant, so that was kind of a fun job. It was really smelly, and but yeah, it wasn't a horrible job. Just as a teenager, it's not the job that you'd think is the best job in the world. So
yeah,
I think that.
Yeah, I can imagine that is probably not a pleasant one to be an introduction to your working life.
Yeah, but then I went from there to like being a dishwasher in a pub, so it's just like hot, sweaty, and then I just stayed in kitchens forever. So
yeah,
always been.
Well, you found your food calling, so that's good.
Yeah.
What's the right way to hang a toilet roll?
As long as it's on there. I never really got this whole inside outside thing, but like at one point I lived with 6 guys, so if there was toilet paper on there, I think I was just grateful. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. It never really bothered me whether it was inside or outside, as long as it was there.
And now that you're married, is there a shall we say a hierarchy to the toilet roll?
No, I just think if you empty it, you put it back on.
So there's no disagreements, because I get a look if I've hung it the wrong way.
Oh no, I don't get that look. No, that's never something that came up in our relationship. So
There we go, folks. As long as there's toilet roll. I think that needs to be the end of the argument. As
Yep.
long as there's toilet roll, just be grateful, especially in times gone by of late.
exactly.
As long as there's toilet roll. Okay, where are we? Who would play you in a biopic of your life?
Oh, geez. There's so many great actors to choose from. There's Brad Pitt, or no, I have no idea. That's I'm just thinking of some Jon Favreau, maybe.
Oh,
after,
yes.
After seeing him in the movie Chef, it was a good movie. He knows how to cook, so
Great. And he did they not do a series as well on
Yeah.
Netflix? They did a chef series of just him and his friends almost.
maybe I'd like to have him play me. I guess that would be.
That's a good choice.
Yeah.
He's a good actor, actually. Good stuff. Yeah. Nice. Okay. What superpower would you want, and would you use it for good or evil?
Oh, I'd definitely not use it for good. Any superpower, but the teenager in me wants to say like Invisible Man, but I don't know. I think I'd like the ability to fly.
Yeah.
Because I do like to travel, so I think I'd just be able to fly myself anywhere in the world would be not using it for evil, but it would be used for good. Just be or used for my own personal leisure. So I just fly to the Bahamas or fly to Egypt to see the pyramids or fly to Hong Kong to have a great meal at a like local hole in the wall that I could just
nice. So yeah, it's just to fuel your passion and enjoyment of food and love of tasting different foods.
Yeah, and I guess that would be for good for me.
The power of travel. I like it. Okay, we are coming to our last two, and I'm now just trying to scan. What is your musical artist guilty pleasure?
Oh, geez. There's
so that one that you kind of love, but you know it's wrong.
Probably Hardaway. What is love? It's out there, I know, but I've also made funeral plans for myself, and I know it sounds dark and weird, but like when people are leaving my funeral, I want the Macarena to play, because then when everybody thinks of a horrible song, they'll think of me.
Yeah.
Everybody plays Stairway to Heaven or something like that. But if you hear a horrible song after hearing that at my funeral, be like, Avery. And so,
yeah, I say you want leave them smiling or cringing, you know.
Yeah, probably Hardaway. What is love is probably my guilty pleasure.
You know, I kind of want to be embalmed in one of my photo poses, to like stuffed and kind of just in a weird kind of like
Yeah.
So when people walk into my funeral, basically I'm standing there just glowering at them. I just think that'd be great. It'd be really hard to fit in the Burgundy box, but it'd be great.
It'd be something I might have to add.
Yeah.
My list of needs and wants after I'm dead.
Yeah, kind of get them to make you up so you actually still look alive. So people walk in and go, what the hell? And then it's like, no, he's actually dead.
Well, if I do something like that, I want googly eyes in though.
Oh.
Yes.
Or time it, get them to time it so a bit just strategically falls off you as people are walking up to you. Sorry, I may have thought about this too much.
Maybe just like me auto recording, like, is that my penis?
No. Force them to listen to a really long story that I've pre-recorded about my life and the agony of my death.
Yeah.
Just to make people feel really sorry for me not be. Yeah. You know what? Yeah, I mean, I don't want people to be happy at my funeral. I'd rather them just be miserable, but not sad miserable, just really angry miserable that I've just left them this horrible kind
Yeah.
of like
So
present.
much so that they want to walk out, but they can't because that would be rude.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I'll be watching them
With
from
your-
my what's taxidermed eyes. All right. Okay, we just got a bit dark there. Sorry, folks. You can tell why me and Avery get on. We have some dark stuff. So, Avery, we're going to wrap this up now because we're hitting the hour and a half mark, and I've promised my guests to try and keep it within that hour and a half mark. So, you're a podcaster. You've now hundreds of episodes in. You've evolved. You've grown. The show's evolved. Your equipment's evolved. Do you have any words of wisdom that you could give to anybody wanting to come into podcasting?
The same advice that I was given: be consistent. I've put it. My first podcast came out on a Wednesday, and I've never missed a Wednesday since. So every Wednesday, I put that podcast out every week, and it's very consistent. And sometimes it's a struggle to get it out, but like doing an interview on Tuesday night, getting home, editing, doing all my stuff, and then putting it out Wednesday. It's sometimes tough, but I've always been consistent, and I think that's advice I was given, and that's the advice that I give everybody else. So, yeah.
And that is sound advice that I've never been able to follow. Avery, thank you very much for joining. Sorry that your wife wasn't able to make it tonight, but I really have enjoyed this. I hope the audience have enjoyed this as well. We've had some lovely questions. When is your next episode out?
Wednesday. Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, and you've just launched one yesterday.
Yeah. So,
and the website, I take it, has a podcast player on it.
Yeah. I just hyperlink everything through Podbean, so it's not really updated, but I should update it. I haven't done it. That's probably my most horrible thing that I'm the worst at, is just updating my website. But you can always find my podcast on iTunes or wherever you find podcasts.
Yeah. So you're on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, all the usual suspects.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. Well, Avery, thank you very much for being on. Ladies and gentlemen, Avery Cochrane of the Messhall Podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. I'll pop you into the green room where you'll find blue M&Ms with all the W's removed. You will find ham and pineapple pizza with black olives on it. And I'm making sure that they're bringing in a big jar of black olives just to pour over the floor. Just so you have to step on them and enjoy that briny, salty smell. Okay, I'll speak to you in a couple of minutes, Avery. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Avery Cochrane from the Messhall Podcast. I want to thank you very much for joining. And as always, if you are interested in being a guest on the show, my email's at the bottom of the screen, but it's Calum Lykan Storyteller @gmail.com, or find me on Facebook at Calum Lykan Storytelling. I've actually had a few people reach out to me, so a few of the up and coming guests I'll be blending in with people that I'd previously contacted, but we'll be having a few surprise guests that I don't really know, and I love that. I love the fact that I'm having this beautiful mix of people like Avery, who I know, I've met, I've hung out with, and then I'm having people on that I have no idea. Other than the research, I've no idea, and it's going to be great because I learn as much as hopefully you guys do. So please drop me an email or find me on Facebook, Calum Lykan Storytelling, or Calum Lykan Storyteller @gmail.com. We also have our Patreon page for the show, A Scotsman Talks To, on Patreon. If you are interested in supporting the show, helping it develop, improving my sound studio, my microphones, my camera, my equipment, me, maybe I could just hire a whole new host. I don't know, someone who with a prettier face and more hair. But basically, if you're interested in helping this project develop, please become a patron and help me improve it. But another reason I've set that up is our guests are giving me a lot of their time and us a lot of their time. And I would like to be able to give them something back. I might not be able to pay them for their time, but even just to be able to get them a wee gift to say thank you for spending the hour and a half to 2 hours on the show. And that's one of the main reasons I've set up the Patreon page. So, I was about to say Calum, Lykan Storytelling. No, it's not that, folks. It's a Scotsman Talks to Patreon page. So please head over to that and show your support. And I've just dropped my notepad. Oh no, disaster. You don't see anything. I'm going to just try and do something here. I am not. I'm trying to do that foot thing. Oh, I'm flexible. Not. That really hurt more than it should have. The next guest. I'm so going to get this guy's name wrong. I've not actually met this gentleman. Again, he came through a recommendation from a previous guest, Gary McLean, and he recommended I should have this chap on my show. And I reached out to him, and yes, you know, he was more than delighted to come on, and he's sent all the details. So he's actually our next guest coming up, and he is going to be on... Wait a minute. Got to get my dates right, folks. 23rd. Yes. Yeah, 23rd. And then who's after him? Oh my God. You know what? Head in the clouds. Totally head in the clouds. But our next guest is going to be quite fun. And I'm just, you know what? I'm sorry. This is how much of a stramash my brain is. I'm actually just going to my page here and double checking that I have everything right schedule-wise, because something in my head's telling me that I might have the wrong schedule in my head. So bear with me, ladies and gents, while I very quickly just go and do this for the sake of making sure that I'm getting the correct information to my audience and you aren't coming to the wrong show. Yes, I've got that right. Our next guest on the 23rd of July is... He's going to kill me for this. He gave me the pronunciation, and I meant to ask if he was being serious or just teasing me because, you know, the Scottish accent. Cengiz. Now, his surname, I forgot to ask, so I'm going to say Javeri, or it could be Haveri. But Cengiz Javeri, a Calgarian actor. I've watched some of the clips he's in. I've listened to him. I saw the hosting that he's done for a show, and I'm really looking forward to having him on the show. He can probably message me after this and give me a verbal slap for getting his name wrong, but I'll have it right when I speak to him in the pre-show interview and chat that we do. But Cengiz is coming on the 23rd of July. Really looking forward to having a chat with him. Local actor, he's done loads of stuff, and he's connected with mutual friends. Brendan Hunter, who've had on, Gary McLean. I believe he knows Jen McLean as well, maybe even Michael Dargay. So basically, it's just a very incestuously delightful connection that we all have in Calgary to the performance community. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us, Scotsman Talks To. We've had Avery Cochrane on this evening from a Messhall podcast. Our next guest is coming up on the 23rd, a week today, same time, same place. So please join me then for another episode of A Scotsman Talks To. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'll see you all next week.